Those of you who have been watching this channel for a long time have heard me say, the source, God, became everything. It wasn't a separate mechanism that this being used to make something else separate from him, it, herself. God became everything. The source became everything. So, the first thing, at least directly before mankind, humanity, God, the source, became nature. And then nature became us. The earth, plants, animals, they are our ancestors in this lineage of creation because God became everything. And where nature kind of went out on a limb. So nature wanted to view itself from an exterior vantage point, but wanted to create something that would be that exterior vantage point. That is us. And we're the link that was kind of like cut off from the rest of the chain. And the end result is our responsibility, our ability to attempt to try to reconcile ourselves as a self-conscious, intelligent human being and the natural consciousness and intelligence of nature. Because most of us view ourselves as very separate from nature, very separate from the source from which we came. And we're trying to reconcile that. Many things that have happened in the previous hundreds of years have been because we are still trying to reconcile our relationship to nature after having decided to categorize it in certain levels, in certain ways, classify it, break it down into smaller elements. And the main problem of all of this is not the categorization or the breaking down into various elements so others can understand. The main problem is that we think we're smarter, we think that we're more intelligent, we think that we can understand more than nature itself. We don't understand consciousness. The consciousness of nature is so non-linear, so vast, and so all-encompassing that it's hard for us to even to engage with it unless we have some kind of like spiritual path or connection to nature, or we draw upon the wisdom of our ancestors. It's really hard to connect with it. So we classify it as something that's lower than us, when in reality it produced us. And it's very hard to understand. It's this, I guess you can call what I'm saying as a theory, but this theory is understood by a lot of shamanic cultures and indigenous peoples, but this theory, we all kind of agree on the same thing when it comes to shamanistic cultures and indigenous people, that we're not superior to nature. We're not superior to the earth. We're not superior to animals and plants. We are a different expression of nature because God became nature, so the source became nature, then became us. And when I say nature, I often mean animals and plants, but then became us. We are grandchildren of the source or grandchildren of nature, however you want to look at it. But we think that because we can create certain technologies and create these ideas and ways of understanding things, that we're superior. We are not. The experience of being linked with nature is far superior than the ability to understand it from an exterior source or an exterior vantage point. And why would nature create us? Why would nature create human beings? Nature is always trying to understand itself because experience is limited And honestly, we're kind of like the first like probes into something that might be exterior to it, and it's just kind of created us human beings as try to like experience itself from an exterior vantage point. We're just the probes. We're not. We're just the. We're just like the experiment. We're not the end all be all of nature. I often say that nature was always working towards something that could understand itself externally through evolution, things like that. But we're the first experiment. This is not we're not the top of the hierarchy. We think we are because we can, produce all these things and understand nature, well, kind of being a part of it from an external source, but no, we are an experiment. Human beings are an experiment of nature. We don't experiment with nature, we are an experiment of nature. And we decide how this experiment goes. We are a self-conscious experiment. So let's get back to a reciprocal relationship with nature, a loving relationship with nature, a back and forth, a non-exploitative relationship with nature. Because most of our economic systems now rely on exploitation. I often use the phone that I'm videotaping this with as an example of exploitation in labor. It's not just phones. Desks, beds, cloth, food, even something as simple as a can of beans that doesn't have a lot of processing going on. There's exploitation in everything that makes up our world in the West and in the vast majority of the world. Exploitation of those who cannot afford to not work tirelessly, like endlessly, each day just to afford their meals. It's not just electronics, it's everything. Desks, paint. Our entire environment is predicated on exploitation of each other. That needs to change. People need to understand that. And if we're exploiting each other, think of how much we're exploiting nature without realizing it. I am reminded of one account of a slave, a human being, who was enslaved. And I think it was a Dutch ship, though the English traded illegally, and then legally before that. Anyway, there's a lot of slaves, human beings that were enslaved, kind of like traded and bought by America, by the United States of America, rather. But there was this one account by this one African man that was enslaved, that he was on the slave ship all the time. 40% of the people died on these ships, 40% of slaves, because they weren't given good treatment, and there was months and months of travel, so it's just an awful experience. But there was one account that, this man was able to learn how to write and then explained everything in the book that he made. I really wish I could remember the book, and I'll probably find it at a later date. But regardless, he said something to the effect of, I watched how the captain treated one of his fellow white crewmates. He was obviously of lesser stature than the captain, or the captain's first mates, as it were. And this white crewman did something wrong, and he was whipped to the point where he was bleeding so much that he died. Whipped again and again and again. And then he bled so much that he ended up dying, and they threw him overboard. And this African man that was enslaved, that made him terrified, because if they would do that to their own, what would they do to me? That's exactly what he said, word for word, at the very end of what I said. Exploitation is bigger than people think. Everything, man. Everything around us is produced through exploitative labor. And if we're willing to do that to other humans, imagine what we're doing to the environment. Mother Earth. It's going to come back. It's going to bite us. We got to start working on changing. This is the only way to change for the better. Mother Earth will support us for a certain length of time and a certain amount of effort on her part. But we might be the cancer on this planet unless we choose to be better, to do better, and to learn from history. At any rate, thank you very much for watching. Hit that like button down there if you like this video at all. Feel free to share this video wherever you want. And don't use too much plastic. Recycle. And try to consume products that weren't created through exploitative human or animal life. Thank you very much, and I hope all of you have a wonderful day.